Hello and welcome to part 2 of Let's Waffle, round 5, looking at round 6. John, Good Friday. Now, as someone with a religious bent, what's your views on games on Good Friday?
Yes, just excuse me, Ross, I'll bless myself before we get into this. Oh, great idea. What else are you going to do on Good Friday afternoon? Stations at the Cross are over at 3 o'clock or 3:30. Time to get down there and in you go. Watch a bit of footy, have a beer and go home and pay your respects.
Strict rules on alcohol supply at the game. You're going to have to be a member of either club, I think, to get into the bars.
Or be signed in, so a guest of.
Yeah. Is this a great idea to increase membership? Are you supposed to have a drink in Perth on Friday, on Good Friday? You can join a waffle club and drink to your heart's content.
Well, you can become a member for about $60, can't you? So that's not
pay that to go to some nightclubs. In fact,
well,
you would have left one there on Saturday night.
There's a bar just around the corner from Lewis Oval, actually, where you can buy a round of beers, and if you get away with $60, you've done very well, because the most expensive pint costs about $37, I think it is. So a very green joint it is there. Yes, can't afford that one. I have to go home and get a white basher out and have one of those.
Very cheap rates though at WAFL clubs. I say they had the Fat Yak Cup at June, like we noticed on Saturday night.
Very nice drop.
Very nice drop, the Fat Yak. Rated very highly. Good Friday. So other clubs haven't done it, haven't wanted to be involved, and other competitions haven't wanted to be involved. Is this maybe an advantage for the WAFL to have a standalone fixture, no AFL on? You can go and watch Subiaco and East.
And what great opportunity to do it too. It's a twilight fixture. I think the timing is pretty good, so it'll finish under lights. I presume that a lot of places will be open too. There won't be restaurants and things won't be closing. So game finishes at 7ish. You can go down to Oxford Street and have a bite and a beer and whatever. Worship in your own particular way. The two home teams, both actually really, game-wise it's important too.
1 and 3 for both sides.
So both really looking to get a bit of momentum, and if they can knock off the neighbour, well, that gives them a little bit of a start going into the rest of the season. Look, I hope that there's going to be a cracking crowd there too. I mean, you could see a really good game. I mean, East Perth showed really good signs for probably almost 3/4 on Saturday. Subi took it right up to Claremont and were leading in time on in the last quarter, so they're pretty evenly matched, very competitive. Should be a good game. You'd hope that you can get a crowd of 5,000. I mean, Leadville's a great place to watch footy. You can sit on the bank, and it's as long as it's starting at 4 o'clock, the lighting's not going to be an issue. You hope you can get a good crowd, as I said, but unfortunately, the crowds this year have been very poor so far. I mean, it's a big issue for the Waffle. A couple of thousand up at West Perth for their arch enemy game. I mean, that's a growing issue in the Waffle. I think is the crowds this year have been ordinary.
Well, I will say to West Perth's credit, they did have a bouncy castle for the kids, and my family went and had to get the young bloke off that machine. They had fairy floss and the face painting. So as a family day, I think they tried reasonably hard, but it was a stinking hot day, and to sit on that far side, look, football's a winter game, so it's been unfortunate Perth's weather having an impact, but the conditions can be quite uncomfortable if you don't have any shade.
And if you wanted to follow other games too, you couldn't do that if you didn't have your radio with you, because the West Perth have decided against doing around the grounds, and I know that I think a couple of the other clubs are not doing that, and that's a pretty ordinary sign. I think there's certain criteria that a club should adhere to.
Well, there should be a minimum standards, and there was a minimum standards report done which did request certain things that clubs...
Well, around the grounds and accurate scoreboards, I think they're just basics, aren't they? They couldn't do it on Saturday. Very disappointing from a spectator's point of view.
Well, John, it goes to the issue too. East Fremantle have had to do some renovations to their facility so that ABC TV can cover their games. Now, what's happening at East Fremantle? They supposedly got talent coming off a conveyor belt down there. There would have been hundreds of thousands of dollars from playing talent. Isn't it time that maybe they invested into some of their facilities as well?
Well, I think they're like Claremont and Swans, that they've got plans afoot to redevelop the ground in conjunction with the local council and Landcorp or the state government agencies.
But by then, no one might not want to go to games. If you turn enough people away, they may never come back.
Yeah, and I mean, East Freo have certainly been looking at that for a decade. So, is it any closer than what it was a decade ago? Well, logically, of course it is, because every day you spend is a day closer to whatever you're getting. Like Fremantle were a game closer to winning in their first flag.
Are we any closer to having a super stadium at Burton?
Well, it'll happen one day, but whether that day is this decade or next remains to be seen. Yeah, look, there are certain minimum standards. Capital expenditure, is it worthwhile? Well, the clubs have to make that decision if they've got plans afoot to do redevelopments. Getting the school right is not a problem. Roster 2 Colts players every week and just have it as a requirement. You've got 10 home games, do it as a requirement.
Well, I'll make an offer that I will ring the WAFL scoreboard attendants with the quarter-by-quarter scores if the WAFL need them. I would have thought that they might have been able to arrange it.
The WAFL?
Sorry?
The WAFL?
WAFL, the very WAFL. But it's just to go onto the WAFL website as well was a little bit difficult, so you had to stay with the west.com.au for all the score updates, because Peel were credited with 1 goal at one stage in the last
quarter. And didn't the ground announcer up at Joondalup make a meal out of that too? He'd seen that. The WAFL website had stopped working, so that they only had 1 goal credit, and he's gone on for 2 minutes to provide a commentary after the game, just belting it down the ears of everyone there that, guess what, Peel have only scored 1 goal. Well, it's just wrong. Don't say things that are wrong if you're going to go on. If you've got the microphone in front of you, just give in fact, don't do anything. They're totally irrelevant. You don't need them.
But surely the league could provide people around the world with an updated score service.
Well, everyone has technical issues. I mean, we know that, so you can't get them into that. But that's 2 weeks in a row that WAFL website hasn't been working on match day, and you think that's the time when it's most required. So a good hard look at themselves is required there in the IT department, I think.
Now, John, what have we heard around the league? Something I did hear up at West Perth was green energy is the buzzword. Could the blue and red team, or keep your eye on the red and the blue as they like to entrench, I think it is entrenched in their constitution actually to be said that way, could they go green? They're looking at employing some green methods throughout their wheat belt district, maybe the use of wind farms, etc., teaching kids how to conserve and recycle, and looking at that as maybe a bit of an industry similar to what Swans have done with BHP in the mining sector. Maybe green energy is a way to keep kids employed and working out in their recruiting zone.
Well, there's a very strong West Perth man out at Kalani, which is in the middle of their wheat belt district. He's heavily involved in footy out there, and he's heavily involved in greening of the wheat belt. So there's already off to a good start. Why not? Maybe a bit of green in the jumper as well, but red, blue and green.
Well, they'll be the Joondalup Falcons within 15 years, won't they? I mean, one thing about the West Perth diehards, the old garlic munchers as we call them, they're probably a generation away from dying out, aren't they?
Well,
so
they do die hard, but they do die.
Yes.
Unfortunately. Look, every club has to be an innovator now, because I mean we know that the challenges that are in front of them from week to week and year to year, and the AFL Reserves is just the latest big one, but there's plenty on the small scale. Clubs have to find ways to survive, and credit to Swans for what they've done in the Pilbara. I mean, it's been outstanding for them, and that's set them up for the foreseeable future. If West Perth can find a means to do it too, good on them, go for it. If you're going to means playing a game in Kalani or Hyden or even, God forbid, Muck and Wooden, that's part of the deal too, isn't it?
Where is Muck and Wooden, by the way?
I don't know, you've been there more recently than I have.
I don't think I'll be going back. This week's games, John, some exciting ones were spread over the Easter Anzac Day long weekend. Friday, Subi East Perth at Medibank Stadium, we've discussed. I'll just get your quick tip on that game.
Subi, just because they pushed Claremont so hard.
I'm going to go with East Perth. I think they might have a bit to play for on Friday night. Now, 2 games on Saturday. We have, including the Foxtel Cup, we have West Perth versus Peel at Arena Joondalup. This was the danger game for West Perth last year. This is what actually cost them a place in the finals. Yeah, well, they're not travelling down to Mandurah this time. They're playing at home. They have absolutely set themselves to come out firing, and I am sure that they will be ferocious, and they should win this game pretty comfortably. Now, the second of the Saturday games involving a WAFL team is actually in Hobart. Yeah. Claremont versus Clarence. Now, that's a commentator's nightmare. You wouldn't want to have clanky teeth on that one. What about a Claremont-Clarence clanger? There'll be a couple of those. Chad Jones won't play. You'd think that Andrew Foster, who pulled out late from the game on Saturday with a niggle in his back, he wouldn't play. Ian Richardson's got a sore ankle, so he might not play.
I'm sure that a lot of those players who are those high quality reserves players that Claremont get will be rewarded for their loyalty by going down there. And from what we hear, Clarence are not that strong, so Claremont could well get a win while on the road.
Now 2 games on Monday. South Fremantle, East Fremantle, the first derby of 2011 at Fremantle Oval, so could be a good crowd there, people looking for things to do over the break. And Swans, Perth at Steel Blue Oval. Now I'll go back and get your tip for West Perth, people.
West Perth or Belton.
West Perth for mine. South Fremantle, East Fremantle at Fremantle.
Yeah, well, you're never confident about picking a derby, but I think South are just going quite nicely. East Fremantle have really underperformed and have surprised a lot of people, and I'm sure their coach Steve Malaxis is as surprised and disappointed as anyone going around. But South just look as though they're going pretty well. Theo Adams may well be back. They're going nicely South, so you tip them.
Yes,
I will tip them.
I will stay with the Bulldogs. Now Swans versus Perth at Steel Blue Oval. This is 4th versus 8th, which you might have expected at the start of the season, but probably the position's in reverse. Probably
the most critical game of the season to date so far. Perth have surprised a lot of people and have won 3 on the trot, and if they can win on Monday, it'll be their first 4 on the trot wins in about a decade, so maybe 8 years, I think.
You do get the feeling, though, to be hard on Perth, but they do need to win this game to really prove themselves as a genuine chance.
There's still a lot of sceptics, I guess, that have seen Perth flatter and then deceive. And Swans, on the other hand, reigning premiers, have been pretty ordinary. They were horrible against South on the weekend. I'm going to tip them simply because if they don't stand up for this game, well, you can just rule them out for the rest of the year. And Greg Harding, he's got to dig deep. He's going to point the finger at a couple of players, but I think they'll come back.
Well, let's waffle for this week.